be able to meet you again. Last time when I came, I had the occasion to meet you, and just a little over 1 year has passed when we meet again. It is a pleasure always to meet devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, wherever it may be, because monks are householders. They belong to one family, with Sri Ramakrishna as the head. And naturally, whenever we go anywhere, we meet devotees, and it is enjoyable because it's a sort of homecoming, it's a sort of family reunion. We may not be individually known to one another, but we know in our heart of hearts that we are intimately connected to Sri Ramakrishna. I have been requested to speak a few hours in this connection when we are meeting together. What shall I speak to you about? Who is our common bond? Sri Ramakrishna is not merely a name. It is an ideal, but not merely an ideal that is incarnated in Sri Ramakrishna. Just I remember in this connection one great utterance by Swami Bhuteshanandaji. He said, whatever I have spoken, if that is helpful for others to reach the goal, then that is of Sri Ramakrishna. The credit goes to him. But if anything has escaped my lips, which are otherwise, then the responsibility is mine. And Swami Shandaji, another dear disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, who has written a masterly book on the life of Sri Ramakrishna, not merely as a biography, but as an interpretation of that life. There he says, in order to understand whether a particular saying is actually associated with Sri Ramakrishna or not, one test is whether it is good for mankind. According to him, Sri Ramakrishna has never said anything which is not for the well-being of humanity. And also every act of his, every event in his life is for the uplift of mankind. That is the criterion by means of which you can evaluate the life incidents of Sri Ramakrishna means that. Sri Ramakrishna himself has said that I do not teach. The very idea of calling me a teacher or a guru, that stings me a little. I do not like it. But then, whatever proceeds from the mouth of Sri Ramakrishna, he says, is not mine, but they come from the great Divine Mother, the Mother of the universe. Or as he has beautifully stated, in this body, meaning his body, it says in this body there is nothing but the Mother of the universe. Sri Ramakrishna is merely an embodiment, an incarnation of the great creatrix of the universe. It is she who finds expression in and through the body of Sri Ramakrishna. When we try to understand what Sri Ramakrishna is, we have to be guided by this great utterance of his, that there is nothing within the body which does not represent the great Mother of the universe. Sri Ramakrishna is not merely a teacher of any particular cult or creed. Sri Ramakrishna represents the great yearning of the soul for its reunion with the source. Sri Ramakrishna is the embodiment of all the various paths through which our life may gradually reach the source. And the paths are innumerable. That's the beauty of Sri Ramakrishna's great message. Paths are infinite in number, as God is infinite. And every one of them is capable of leading us to the goal, to the source from which everything has emanated. In brief, that is what we have to understand as the ideal of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna could never mention his own person as an individual. He was not even identified with the body. Whenever he had to refer to his body, he used to say this, here, like, without saying I or me. Now that was Sri Ramakrishna. Where the ego was completely eliminated. If we can eliminate our ego, then the cosmic self manifests there, uninhibited, unobstructed, as the Supreme. who are completely enveloped in ignorance, who are absolutely helpless, tiny souls, incapable of manifesting what is hidden inside. And when these tiny souls are gradually eliminated, then that unrestricted, unlimited reality shines without any kind of obstruction. Shri Ramakrishna taught merely how this ego has to be eliminated. Every religion, all the different paths are concerned with that sort of elimination of ego. So long as we remain cooked up in our little self, we feel ourselves helpless. But actually, in this little self shines the unlimited. The beautiful illustration is given in the Upanishads. Just as a little drop of water, a clear drop, when it falls into a vast sheet of clear water, what happens to it? It simply becomes identified with that vast sheet. It loses its individuality, it loses its limitation, but it is not annihilated. It remains as it has been remaining all along, only the limitation which was superimposed on that unlimited being, that limitation is eliminated. Yata Shuddham Shuddhya Siktam Tadvidevo Bhavati Evam Mune Vijanata Atma Bhavati. Just as a little drop of clear water, when it falls into a vast sheet of clear water, it becomes the same as a vast sheet. That is what happens to a man who is enlightened, who is illumined. It is ignorance that makes us see that we are little beings, that we are different from one another. And because of that, all these struggles and strifes, all our miseries issue from this sense of limitation. Now that limitation can be transcended. We can get rid of that limitation. How? By various means. It is not only one system or two systems, but an infinite number of systems through which the achievement of this elimination of the limitation is possible. And Shri Ramakrishna mainly demonstrated this truth through his life. It is unabsorbed. The more we are away from the goal, the more we feel our differences from one another. The closer we go to the goal, the closer we feel among ourselves. The distances gradually dwindle, the differences are eliminated. And then when we have reached the goal, we become one. The diversity merges into that unity. That is, according to Sri Ramakrishna, the last word in our spiritual aspiration. It does not matter which path we follow. Maybe we are devotees, we are following the path of devotion. Maybe we are men of knowledge, following the path of knowledge through discrimination and reasoning. Maybe we are great workers. We are working out our salvation through selfless activity. All these and infinite varieties of every one of these paths, they all ultimately lead to the one source of all existence. And when we reach that source, our ego is completely eliminated. It is not destruction of ourselves, though apparently we are afraid of losing our individuality, thinking that that will be the end of ourselves. Even great spiritual giants get frightened when they think of the complete merger of the individual with the absolute, unlimited. But then it is there that we get the consummation of our existence. Our existence is perfected with all the limitations eliminated when we have reached the goal and we have found our true self then and then only. That is what Sri Ramakrishna teaches. But not through any dogma, not through any ardent personal regimentation, not through any kind of creed or any kind of particular practice. He says it is not the monopoly of any sect or any creed. Every one of us, does not matter which sect we belong to, which is our creed, ultimately we shall reach that stage when we shall be absolutely pure. As in the Bible it is said, as pure as the Father in heaven is pure. When we are as pure as God, then what makes any kind of distinction between me and my Maker? So that is the teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. Without just any kind of ardent creed, does not matter what path we are following, but we are sure to reach the goal. If we are honest, if we have great longing in our heart. And that means whether we have any proper right for it or not, that also is relative. We may not know anything, but then our yearning itself will take us to the goal. Sri Ramakrishna has demonstrated this when he did not follow any defined course for spiritual illumination. He just followed the dictates of his heart. He just responded to the great yearning from within. And then, through that and that alone, he had clouds. That is just the unusual way. Usually we have flowers first and then fruits, but there are some varieties which produce fruits first and then flowers. And Sri Ramakrishna himself belonged to that category. So he had got vision first. Through the sheer yearning of his soul. And then he started his various experiments on these different systems. Why did he follow these systems then? Just to demonstrate that what can be attained through the yearning of the heart, the same can be attained by means of the different things, different paths leading to the ultimate goal. Now that was what Sri Ramakrishna had to demonstrate. It is true that such ideas, very liberal ideas, have been expressed in the Upanishads and in the later scriptures as well. We know Sarva Samapano Samudrayakaya. For all the waters, the one goal is the ocean. So for all existence, the one goal is the ultimate source, the supreme reality. It is mentioned there. That means every drop of water will ultimately reach the ocean. That is the destiny. But then it was in the Upanishads, and it was just a thing to be taught by scholars and learned by people who have that book learned. That is not enough. Sri Ramakrishna did not just give utterances which he learned from the scriptures. He was almost absolutely without the knowledge of the scriptures. I mean, that he had no direct access to them. He might have heard from others, but did not study them systematically. But then the scriptures had to be verified by his experience. That was it. Scriptures were there, and yet men lose their faith in the teachings of the scriptures because they are far away. There's a big gap between our daily life and the principles taught by the scriptures. It was necessary for a man of the stature of Sri Ramakrishna to demonstrate the truth that is embodied in the scriptures, without which man cannot have that sort of living faith which alone can take conviction. That is what is the necessity of Sri Ramakrishna practicing these various paths. That has to be remembered. Now we then think of Sri Ramakrishna's events in his life as taught by Swami Sarvara. Every event of his life has got a lesson for us. It was a sort of demonstration of the great experiments towards the reaching of the ultimate. That was what Sri Ramakrishna lived for, and that was what he demonstrated by his life. That has to be remembered. Sri Ramakrishna was very simple in his utterances because truth is simple. It does not need any kind of ornamentation, any kind of rhetoric. It can be told simply because the truth itself is simple. What is the simple truth? Just this, that there is only one existence everywhere. One existence of which we are just manifestations or parts and persons, whatever makes us different from the ultimate. That is what had to be demonstrated so that it could carry conviction in these days of superstition or days of disbelief. Now that is, we have lost faith in our ultimate goal. We have lost faith in the scriptures. We have lost faith in the teachings of the sages and saints. And that faith had to be re-established, not merely through study, but by a demonstration, an ocular demonstration before us. That was what was the need of the hour, and Shri Ramakrishna appeared to just give us that demonstration is. That is what Shri Ramakrishna stands for. As I told you, he embodies infinite shades of opinion, various forms of spirituality, as Revered has said beautifully, that he is the embodiment of the spiritual hankering for several millions of people through several millennia. Now that finds satisfaction in the production of the great spiritual giant, Sri Ramakrishna. Who produced him? None but himself. God himself, that is why you say, God himself incarnated as Sri Ramakrishna. It is an act of faith for people who believe in him. And even if we do not have that faith, it does not matter. If we study that life objectively, without any kind of prejudice, with dispassion, in order to understand the truth, then we are bound to be convinced. If we are not convinced, we should be sure that there is something lacking in us and not lacking in him that does not carry conviction. Now that is what is important. That we have to open our heart to him. As Swamiji has said, only those who are blind, they cannot see, and those who are perverted, they will not see. That is what Sri Ramakrishna is. If we do not open our hearts to him, we are the great delusion. Sri Ramakrishna will be a great magnet drawing people, but if we remain covered up with mud, as Sri Ramakrishna said, like a needle covered up with mud, which does not feel the attraction of the magnet. If we remain covered up like that with impurity, without suspicion, without disbelief, without ignorance, rank ignorance, then we are the losers. Sri Ramakrishna has sent a great call to all the people of the world. Now he is there, the great luminary. We have only to open our eyes so that all our darkness will vanish through the understanding, through the experience of the great light. Sri Ramakrishna himself has stated it again and again that he has made spiritual truth so much within reach of us that it requires only very little effort on our part to reach. Sri Ramakrishna has brought it to our door. Only we have to open the door so that we can at once get flooded with that light. That is what is very important to understand. We are blessed by being born at an age when truth has come to the very doorstep, as it were, for us. We are here, it is within our reach, we are only to extend our hand and we are going. But unfortunately, our perversity is so great that sometimes we feel reluctant even to do that with clear The great light is there, only we have got to open our eyes so that we see the illumination which will, in a twinkle of an eye, will remove all darkness. That is what is a great promise for people who are willing to open their eyes to Him, to open their hearts to His influence. Now that is what is necessary for us at this age. It is, Swamiji says, it is the Satya Yuga, the golden age, because it is here now that a very little effort on our part will make that truth visible to us. It is not so easy to get at that truth through the study of scriptures. As Sri Ramakrishna says, in the scriptures we find a mixture of sand and sugar. They are mixed up together. It requires the discerning eye to find out which is which, to accept what is truth and to just discard what is accretion. Much accretion is there because human mind is not pure, therefore it has accumulated so much of legends, so much of things which cloud our eyes, and the result is we get suspicious about the very existence of the reality, the very existence of the truth. Now a demonstration of the magnitude of Sri Ramakrishna will naturally remove all our suspicion, will make our eyes free from all impurities. But we have to open ourselves up to the influence. That is what is important. Now people often ask this question, that Swamiji says Satya Yuga has started with the birth of Sri Ramakrishna. But what do we see if we look around us? We see all sorts of frightening scenes everywhere. We are going down and down in immorality, in ignorance, in everything. Now what is the truth then that Sri Ramakrishna brought in Satya? The thing is, even when the great avatars were born, we did not immediately perceive the great spiritual force that they were. We do not perceive at that time. That is why we find in the Gita it is said, Avajananti mam muram manasing tanumasuna param bhavam ajananto moha. My the greatness of me, the supreme reality that I am really, people do not understand, they do not know. And therefore they consider me merely as an embodied self. And therefore they hate me, they do not have any respect for me. They deride me. But then, even then the seed of that truth is sown, and it will naturally spring up. Irresistibly it will have its influence spread, and only those who are blessed will gain by it, and others are unfortunate if they remain impervious to that influence. Now that is what has to be remembered, particularly by the devotees who may be just having some sort of suspicion in their mind as to whether Sri Ramakrishna will illuminate their hearts or not. Now that suspicion, that doubt, comes naturally because it is a manifestation of our impurity that we have accumulated through ages. Now Sri Ramakrishna is there to be judged. Every act of his, every utterance of his can be judged with utmost scrutiny and then find out if they are helpful, accept them. If not, simply reject them. That is what Sri Ramakrishna says. Do not accept anything simply because I have told. No. You judge by the merit of that saying. If it is good for you, accept it. Otherwise, reject it altogether. Sri Ramakrishna never wanted a sort of passive submission. No. You have to actively accept them or you just reject them. It is not necessary to give your lip sympathy and reverence to Sri Ramakrishna. He does not need it. He is not in need of such kind of acceptance, which is only superficial. Sri Ramakrishna wants that you must be convinced of the truth of what Sri Ramakrishna said. You must be convinced of the greatness of that personality. It is then and then only that you will be really benefited, and not merely tacit acceptance as a right. Nowadays, if I am moving about in almost every part of India and coming in contact with thousands and thousands of people. Many are simply drawn there because he is the current one. Many simply think it's a passion to be attracted to Sri Ramakrishna. That is to say that I love Sri Ramakrishna, I cherish his idea. But that is not what Sri Ramakrishna wanted of us. He wanted us to be careful scrutinizer of the great utterances that Sri Ramakrishna has left. The great idea that he has placed before us. Let us judge it sincerely, honestly, with this passion. We need not be partial to it. It can stand the scrutiny of everybody. It can stand daylight. There need not be any kind of just sort of mystery about it. Sri Ramakrishna came as the breaker of all mysteries. He wanted the truth to be seen in broad daylight and not to be hidden under bushel. It can stand scrutiny. We can see clearly, we can judge by the utmost rational endeavor and find out whether there is truth in it or not. Sri Ramakrishna does not want us to be tacit acceptors of the teachings. That is what we as devotees of Sri Ramakrishna should do. If we have understood him, we have understood religion in all its bearing. The path will then be clear to you. We shall know every inch of our path and the great inspiration that he has spread everywhere, the great magnetic attraction that he has, will draw us irresistibly towards him. So it is a golden age, that is why it is said a golden age. The golden age will function as such, but there are people who will be left out. If we are left out, we are unfortunate. So let us be actively participating in this drama of great uplift of humanity. We have just seen only the glimpses of it. The sun is rising and we have seen only just a little glow in the east. It will grow in intensity, it will grow in its magnitude, and it will spread more and more, irresistibly, not irresistibly. This is the greatness of an incarnation. The test of an incarnation is that his influence will go on spreading further and further, and gradually That is what Sri Ramakrishna stands for. We are seeing only just the beginning of that film. And we know when Sri Ramakrishna was in physical existence, how many people knew him? Only a handful. But now, within this a little over a century, we see the whole humanity, as it were, is anxiously looking at him as the only source by means of which our ignorance can be removed, the darkness can be completely eliminated, the world can be saved, we ourselves will be saved, and as the whole world will have a sort of update which in the past history there is no parallel. That is what Swamiji says. Such a great man, such a great star of magnitude never the world has seen. It is a unique thing, and let us get the full advantage of it. That is what Swamiji has said. That is what the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna have said. Some of whom we have the good fortune of coming in contact. We have seen the living faith that just spread among us when in their presence. Everywhere people got free from all doubts, as it were, because of their living presence. Now, Sri Ramakrishna is not to be limited to any particular space or particular community or particular country. He is for the whole world. And let us see clearly to what extent we can be benefited by it. Maybe we are not able to accept the whole thing because our strength is limited, because our individuality is rather small and narrow. So it is not possible for us, a little vessel, to contain all the waters of the ocean. But even then, let us be benefited by whatever we can receive, whatever we can contain, and through His grace, gradually the rest will also expand, and then there will be no end to our progress. Step by step it may be, but ultimately we are sure to reach the goal, as Ramakrishna has given assurance that whoever accepts Him must reach the goal. There will be irresistibly the ultimate salvation will come. We shall be placed again as a source, as it were. All our impurities will disappear. All our limitations will go, and we shall be blessed with the full vision of the day. That Sri Ramakrishna had realization of the Divine Mother, or whatever you must call the highest, the deity, the Supreme Deity. He realized her through the yearning of his heart, and later on he started the practice of different systems by means of which God can be realized. I told you in that connection a saying of Sri Ramakrishna himself, that though ordinarily a flower comes first and then fruit follows, in the case of the incarnations of God, it is the other way. The fruit comes first and then the flower. The idea is that God realization is something with which they are born. he will lose faith in them. So it is necessary for them to demonstrate in their life the different paths as helpful in realizing the ultimate. But then the question comes, why is it that Sri Ramakrishna thought of following the different systems for God realization when he had already got that realization? The answer is that Sri Ramakrishna never followed these systems with any particular idea behind them. Sri Ramakrishna's actions followed from an inner heart. He felt that of following the different systems of God realization, the different approaches. If you ask why he followed them, of course he did not give an explanation to that himself. But if any explanation is needed, it has been supplied by the great interpreter of his life, Swami Bhuteshanandaji Maharaj, who discussed the point at length in his work, Sri Ramakrishna. He is a great teacher, so it is necessary for him to demonstrate the validity of these different paths. And that he did, without ever being conscious that he was doing it for that purpose. Because Sri Ramakrishna was a child of the Divine Mother, as he used to call himself. And every one of his actions he follows from that divine will. So he thought that I asked him to him that I should follow these different paths and see how people following these different paths realize God. Then the different systems of religious practice follow. And it is curious to see that whenever a particular system was to be followed, an addict in that system would come, we call it accidentally, or we may say, in obedience to the will of God. Some addicts came and taught in the past as they have been practiced for centuries or millennia. Now Sri Ramakrishna, he submitted himself to the discipline of the path and scrupulously followed these details. As we know, elaborate descriptions are there of some of the paths he followed. About others, mention has been made just summarily, without giving details, because the details could not be had unless he himself could narrate them to the audience, to his devotees. those practices had been followed long ago, long before the younger disciples had gathered around his feet. So they never knew how things happened. But Sri Ramakrishna casually mentioned these topics, and then they could know. The idea is that Sri Ramakrishna never wanted to write his autobiography, nor did he express his desire that somebody else also should write it. He was always simple like a child and never cared for any kind of recognition, either from the people of the time or for people who would come in the future. So he never cared to give any full details about them. Only in the course of the conversation, some events would be just mentioned casually, and they were mentally recorded by the disciples. You find only just a small fraction of those talks contained in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, published by his household and disciple M. But those are not exhaustive, only occasionally mentioned certain things. Many more things were added by his young disciples who lived with him, served him, and towards the end of the episode, towards the days just before the passing of Sri Ramakrishna, they always stayed with him, serving him, and could hear many things in detail. But all these took place within the last 5 or 6 years of the Master's life. And the sadhana, the practices took place long ago. Those who had seen them were practically all gone. All those who were still alive were not competent to give any details of the sadhana, because Sri Ramakrishna never wanted to be in the limelight at any time. Therefore, nobody knows. The history will remain unknown. But whatever is known and has been recorded, that also is a wonderful collection of events which we have not yet been able to clearly understand. Is sadhana in various stages. You may be aware that Sri Ramakrishna, as I told you, first realized the presence of the Divine Mother, not actually in any particular form, because Sri Ramakrishna had never mentioned that. He mentioned only this much, that there was a great mass of light coming wave after wave, and he was deluged by that wave of light and lost his outward consciousness. He did not even mention the word samadhi, but he said, I lost my outward consciousness. Now that was the experience that came. We without any kind of systematic procedure. Later on, he accepted as his guru a lady who was adept in the tantras. Tantric sadhana started under her direction. Now those sadhana also he has mentioned casually. Details are not available. But in what the items that we know about it show that that lady who Sri Ramakrishna used to call as Brahman, she was a Vaidhi, a sannyasini, and she got Sri Ramakrishna. She came to Dakshineshwar being guided by some divine order, she said. And then she at once recognized Sri Ramakrishna, who was to be her disciple in the Tantric sadhana. And the sadhana continued. Those Tantric sadhanas are usually practiced in great secrecy. They are not to be performed in public before others. So it has to be just proceeded with great secrecy, great privacy. He followed them. And then realized the presence of the Divine Mother not only in the temple, not only in meditation, but the Divine presence which was all-embracing. He saw the Mother everywhere. Not only that, he saw his inside was filled with the presence of the Divine Mother. He used to say that within this body there is nothing except that Divine Mother. That feeling everything, external and internal, outside as well as inside. That was the experience of the Divine Mother. What he meant by Divine Mother? We often wrongly interpret it as a worship of the Mother Kali. Because she was a priest worshipping the Mother in the temple. That was, of course, the Kali aspect of the Mother. But what did he mean by that Kali? He had a peculiar meaning which we do not usually attach to the name. According to him, it is the Kali or Shakti or the power of Brahma, the power which is identical with Brahma. He says when the great Creator creates, preserves and destroys the universe, when he is doing these functions, they call him Ishvara or Brahma in the aspect with attributes. When the Brahman is without attributes, we call him Brahman. And when he is with attributes, namely as creator, preserver and destroyer of the universe, we dwelling Shakti, the power, which is identical with Brahman, and whom we sometimes mention as the Kali. Shakti, the power of Brahman, and Brahman, they are not different from each other. The same reality is called Brahman in certain transcendental aspects, and it is called Shakti, the power, in another aspect when we realize in these attributes. They are not different entities. So, following that path, the Shakta God, the God of the worshipper of the Shakti, he realized that Shakti and explained that Shakti as identical with Brahman, not different. So, he fondly used to call that power Mother. And Kali is only one of the forms that the Mother may take. The Mother has got infinite varieties of forms. She may be sometimes in the form of a woman, sometimes in the form of a masculine deity. So it does not make any difference because the essence is the same. So that was the cult of the Shakti that he followed. Then he followed the Vaishnava cult also, practicing that with utmost loyalty to the various forms that are to be accepted or a follower of that path. He followed that path. He realized Rama, he realized Krishna, he realized various other forms. All these he realized as representing one ultimate reality. They are not different, but one ultimate reality, attaining to the disciples in different aspects, according to their liking, according to their tendency. So that way he realized the God with attributes and God without attributes in different forms. One after the other we practice these paths. And though we do not have all details, we can take it for granted. We exhausted these different paths prescribed by the Hindu religion. She also followed the Vedantic path, the path leading to God without attributes. For that he got the direction from Totapuri, as we know. Totapuri initiated him into Vedanta, and he realized the highest within 3 days and remained immersed in the highest form of Samadhi, and reached Totapuri was amazed. The famous saying of Totapuri, that what he realized through austere practice of sadhana for 40 years of 3 days at a stretch. Now that was the capacity of Shri Ramakrishna as a lifetime of a particular path. Then he did not feel that all his hunger for these various kinds of approaches to God were satisfied. It was not yet satisfied. He wanted to know how a Muslim realizes his God. And he followed the path under the direction of another addict. Then he casually, after that, he casually got inclined to the worship of a Christian. He wanted to know how the Christian approaches his God. And he got the vision of Christ. And that way he realized what the ultimate realization of a Christian is. In this manner, his experiences were so various, so many different forms it took, that we can just mention that he exhausted all the possible paths that were known in those days. And what was his experience? His experience was that all these paths led to only one reality, which is inexhaustible. The ways to reach that reality is infinite. And he demonstrated through his practice, through his life, that it is so. That was the crying need of the hour. We know the great truths that have been mentioned in the Upanishads, in the Vedas, Ego Satvitra, the one reality is described by the rishis in various forms, various ways. Or we know in the Puranas also the same thing has been mentioned elaborately through stories and images. But those things remain only looked at in books. They cease to have that sort of compelling power which can come only from a person who has himself realized the truth of these statements. That was left. It is true that in the Gita you find Shri Krishna mentioning Mahavatmana Vaktante Manusya Pata Sarvasam. All people follow my path only, that is all paths lead to me only. That is mentioned. But then, as I told you, there is no compelling instance behind the statement. We do not find any record in the ancient scriptures where an incarnation had practiced all these various processes and realized that. It is stated in the scriptures. It is a statement, but nothing to substantiate it by demonstration. And man's mind is full of suspicion. Are they really true? Or are they merely some statements without being authenticated by anyone? Is it mere generalization without being backed by experience? So such doubts appear in the minds of people. How to remove them? The more so in these present days of suspicion and questioning. We question everything, we are suspicious of the truth of everything, and we can accept certain things as true only when that is demonstrated before us. That is what is called nowadays the scientific tendency of the mind. A scientific mind will only accept a thing if it is demonstrable. Has it been demonstrated? That is the question. Shri Ramakrishna had to go through all these experiences just to show that these things are demonstrable. And even to this day, these things are not dead dogmas, but are living bits of truth and can be verified in our everyday life. That was the special message of Sri Ramakrishna in the modern times. Sri Ramakrishna could fulfill that need of the hour, the demonstration that religion is something which is demonstrable. There is a tendency in us that we accept things only when they are demonstrable. Sri Ramakrishna was there to demonstrate the truth of these utterances before us. Not only that, Sri Ramakrishna had a very scientific mind also. It is very strange that a man without any kind of education to call it so, to answer them, yet his mind was so rational, so very inquisitive, that he wanted everything to be tested and then to be accepted. When he was worshipping the Mother Kali in the stone image, he had the question in his mind, is the Mother really present there or merely it is a stone image? He had to see for himself that it is not merely an image, but the Divine Mother really. And he was satisfied only when he had that experience. So it was not that he would accept anything for granted. He wanted to test the truth of everything. That is why Sri Ramakrishna tested the Mother also. Are you really a living presence or you are merely a stone image? You asked. Not that he did not believe in the Mother, but he wanted to be reassured. He appealed to the Mother so that he may be reassured. That is the peculiarity of Sri Ramakrishna, the divine child. He never lost faith in the Mother, but he wanted every bit of his path to be well tested. Why? Because he has to show to others the truth of every kind of experience that one gets in one's spiritual life. He has to be enlightened himself every bit of it, and then only he could, with honesty, he could lead others. So whatever he said from his own experience. Various paths he followed scrupulously as they should be by a believing aspirant. then gradually the realization of the highest showed to him convincingly that all paths, all religions are so many paths leading to the one ultimate goal. As I told you, the Upanishad is utterance. Sarvasamahan samudra yagaram. All waters ultimately merge into the ocean. So all souls ultimately merge into the unabsorbing soul, the unabsorbing reality. That is not merely a logical conclusion. It was the fact that has been demonstrated to Sri Ramakrishna. His pure mind could experience every bit of it, and then only he could say with fondness that it is so, and he could mention it with authority. That is the great power that is generated in the form of Sri Ramakrishna to lead people from disbelief to belief, from darkness to light, from agnosticism to enlightenment. Now that is what Sri Ramakrishna's message is, and that is the import of his appearance in the present age as an incarnation of God for the removal of all ignorance, all doubts, and for the reconciliation of all the contradicting views, all kinds of differences, all kinds of hostilities, and to prove today the reality that the soul is all-embracing. That is what Sri Ramakrishna demonstrated by his life. Various episodes are there in that connection. Let us remember that episode when Sri Ramakrishna saw two boatmen quarreling in the river, and one gave a slap to the other, and Sri Ramakrishna's back, the mark was imprinted. That means the identification of his own self with those of others, even physically, that is demonstrated by his life. When somebody walks with shoes on over a patch of green grass, Sri Ramakrishna felt the print of the shoe on his chest. Identification, complete identification of the universe. No matter how it could be demonstrated, so that is what was necessary. Sri Ramakrishna has been tested by his disciples time and again. Every time he saw them testing him, he encouraged them, yes, do that, and then find out what is truth. Do not testing, never accept anything, never accept anybody, simply because he says I am so. Yes, everybody has to pass through the test, and through his genuineness, he wanted the disciples to test him also that way. He said, whatever you just hear something from me, do not accept that as simply because I say so, but test it. And then you do find it stands the test of his message, not otherwise. That is Sri Ramakrishna's message to his disciples. Now after many years, when the disciples gathered around him, and when he was teaching them, he was wonderfully, he was understanding every peculiarity of each individual and could guide him along the path that is most suitable for him. And that because he himself had traveled along those paths and became familiar with the way. Every way was familiar to him. That is why he potentialities and then reach the goal as the culmination of that sadhana. It may be different for each individual. Sri Ramakrishna never let anybody to interfere in somebody else's approach to God. That was the point that has to be remembered. One Swami Vivekananda himself just superimposed his influence on another. But when I became Sri Ramakrishna came to know about exfoliating, I said never do that. Which lesson Swami Vivekananda never taught us in his life. That is why we find him often mentioning that do not impose your personality on anybody. If you can try to help each person develop in his or her own way, however it hands on. Keep aloof from him, let him grow in his own way. That is the great message which we have to lose sight of. When we just pay our reverence to Sri Ramakrishna, who is simply considered as a great devotee or an incarnation of God, but there are incarnations and incarnations. Each incarnation has a speciality of its own, the speciality which is needed at the time when he appears, and the speciality that we find in Sri Ramakrishna is the careful guidance he gave to the disciples so that each could develop in his or her own way and reach the goal. Only after reaching the goal, they may realize later on that all are leading to the same goal. But we will not foresee that teaching forever. He will say, you must have burning faith in the path that you are following. You must be sure of the validity of the path, otherwise you will have no attraction for it. You cannot proceed and just with one-pointed attention to it. But then, don't pass any judgment on others, because we have not tasted their past. You can at the most say, my path is true because I have followed it, I have taken it. But about your path, if possible, have respect for them, saying that yes, your path also is true. But if you cannot do so far, then also you can say, I do not know about your path. I have no authority to pass any judgment on your path, because I have not tested your path. That is the point, the most scientific attitude that Sri Ramakrishna wanted to inculcate in every one of his disciples. He said, you follow your path with all conviction and pay respect to others as fellow pilgrims along the path, along different paths leading to the same goal, the place of pilgrimage. The ultimate goal that you are all following, the destination. But if we are not sure of that, don't pass any judgment about others. Say that I do not know about your path, so I have no right to say either that your path is right or wrong. So I follow my path, you follow yours. Without just squatting on ourselves, without wasting our energy unnecessarily in simply criticizing one another. Let us concentratedly decide about to reach the goal, and then only we shall know whether all are reaching the same point or not. That is the point which Ramakrishna wanted to inculcate in everybody, without forcing any personality, any church, any doctrine about anybody. That is the beauty of the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. That has to be carefully understood. It is the lesson for the age for all of us. If we learn this, we can be able to better understand ourselves, to be confusing become a student of science. Now, Shri Ramakrishna was extremely scientific in that manner, and because of that, his message, his way of thinking is very important in this age, where scientific thoughts are predominant in the minds of people who are educated, and just that way, even those who are uneducated, they are also much influenced by the scientific views. Now that is what is important in the case of Sri Ramakrishna. We do not remember it like that in the various parts, but one thing we can just mention, that Sri Ramakrishna never mentioned that knowledge will not be able to reach the goal, or devotion will not be able to reach the goal, or even karma cannot reach the goal. The teachings of Sri Ramakrishna has been perfectly elaborated by his eldest disciple, Swami Vivekananda, who has taught in this manner that these various paths should be followed scrupulously, and the test of their genuineness should be only when we reach ultimate goal, and when we have reached the goal, we will appreciate the same goal being reached by everybody else. Now that is the requirement of the scientific age. We have to be just adapted to the present environment. Various cultures are meeting together now. Various views are clashing against one another. The world has been a sort of madhouse, as it were, each having fought with another. In this manner, we will only increase the chaos, and that will upset everything in individuals as well as collective lives. So, Sri Ramakrishna comes as a great stabilizer. His message will not only help people individually to adapt themselves to their environments, even collectively, it will help one race to be in harmony with other races, one nation to be in harmony with other nations, individuals, clans, societies. They need not quarrel